Good morning. A warm welcome to everyone. The 9-day online national lecture series is a little effort on the behalf of the English department, KKM College Jamui of Munger University, and the YouTube channel English Literature Brief. It is our humble privilege that the 18 speakers across the country have readily accepted our invitation for the lecture series. The talks that they will deliver mainly pertains to the syllabus of the undergraduate and postgraduate students. Hopefully, in the coming days, the lecture will truly prove beneficial to the students. Now, for the first session, the first speaker, it is our honor that we have Dr. B.C. Pandey, the head of S.K.R. College, Barbigha of Munger University, and the inspector of colleges of Munger University. We are truly indebted to you, sir, for the extended support that you have been giving us throughout. And not only that, he has honored us to give a talk for this lecture series. Now, he is not only a great person but also a man of academic excellence. At present, he is serving as the Inspector of Colleges, Munger University. He has nearly 24 published papers and has attended several seminars and conferences. He has nearly 23 years of teaching experience. His area of interest is linguistic and language teaching. He also writes poems in Hindi and English. Today, he is going to deliver talk on an introduction to language and linguistics. Sir, may I request you to deliver the lecture?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your introduction. Uh,
Thank you.
as the topic of my lecture suggests, uh, this is quite an introductory lecture regarding language and linguistics. And the focus of my lecture will be on discussing what is language, what are the functions of language, what are the features of language, how language changes, and at last, I will also try to bring into this lecture a general introduction to linguistics, how this science of language studies various aspects of language. So I first share my PPT, and then I'll be discussing the entire things. The
Okay.
in the beginning itself, I would like to say that this is not any kind of a specialized lecture. It will be a lecture meant especially to students, and as our students of Munger University have to study linguistics also as special paper in part 3, and they have also to study some phonetics part and history of language part in part 1. So this lecture will give them a kind of insight into the structure of language and functions and features of language. So I share my screen, and I'll be discussing the different points one by one. Is it visible? Hello?
No, sir. No, sir, it is not
No.
visible.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Um, yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay.
Okay.
So as I told, the my topic is an introduction to language and linguistics. We are so familiar with language that we never think what actually language is and how it helps. In simple terms, we can say that language is a code which connects meaning with expression. The meaning that is in our mind is expressed through language, or we can say that language is a means of communication. It is because of language that we know things. So, in our scriptures, it is said, the word is the world. Sabda Brahma iti. Word, word itself shows the world, because without language we cannot manifest the things. Besides this, language is also an index of human personality. So Johnson had said, language most shows man. Speak so that I may see thy face. So language is also an index of human personality, and we know that language is an instrument of social control. Without language, we cannot imagine of a society. Then, language is a shared property of speech community, because every speech community has a language and it is shared by each member of that speech community, and that is why communication is possible in a particular speech community. Now, what are the components of language? Generally speaking, language consists of two main components. One is verbal and the other one is non-verbal. In verbal part, we have sound, we have words, we have phrases and sentences, we have meaning, and of course we have a part of that, we have a context. Because without a context, language is not meaningful in the right way. So these are the components of the verbal aspect of language. Then we have non-verbal aspects of language, like signs and symbols and pictures. And we have also paralinguistic components like stress, intonation, body language, etc. So overall, language consists of verbal as well as non-verbal components. Here we will concentrate mostly on the verbal aspects of language. Now, let us see some of the definitions of language. How do we define language? In technical terms, there are certain words or technical words which are included in the definition of language, without which we cannot understand what technically language means. So I have taken three uh, quotations or three definitions for discussion here. First of all, we have a definition by Henry Lee Smith. Now, he defines language as a language is a learned, shared, and arbitrary system of vocal symbols through which human beings in the same speech community or subcultures interact and hence communicate in terms of their common cultural experience and expectation. Now, in this definition, we see certain words like arbitrary system. Now, arbitrary system language has been called an arbitrary system because uh, we acquire it and we give name to certain things. It is human beings who have named different things. In Bible also we have a reference of how Adam was given the task of naming things. So we name things. So it is arbitrary. So in different languages, the same things are called by different names. For example, we have a word dog in English. In Hindi, we have kutta. In Sanskrit, we have kukura. So it is arbitrary. It is not fixed. Then language is vocal symbol. So generally, it is vocal, and we have already said that there are two aspects of language: the verbal and non-verbal. Then it is the system of communication that is used by human beings. Actually, there are some animals also, or animals in general, and birds have their own uh, set of signs through which they communicate in some way or the other. But that system is not so powerful and efficient as the system that humans use. So it is a human asset. And then we have a speech community. Every language operates in a particular speech community, and that community goes on extending for that matter. Then we share our common cultural experience and expectations with the use of language. So this is one definition. Then there is another definition by Edward Sapir, a very popular definition. Language is a purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of voluntarily produced symbols. Now, in this definition, also we find the element of language being human, then it being non-instinctive, that is again arbitrary. Uh, Language is acquired, we learn language. Language is not inborn, it is not instinctive. And then it is voluntarily produced symbol. And there is a third definition by Ronald W. Langaker. Uh, a language is a device that establishes sound meaning correlation, pairing meaning with signals to enable people to exchange ideas through observable sequences of sound. Now, this also shows the kind of arbitrariness that language possesses. So, in general terms, we can say that language is a system of arbitrary or non instinctive symbols which is used by humans for expressing ideas, emotions, and desires in a particular speech community. So this is the general definition of a technical definition of language. Now, based on this definition, let us discuss what are the features of language or the characteristics of language. How can we uh, point out certain distinguishing features of language? First of all, we have uh, the feature of language that is known as arbitrariness. Language is arbitrary. We have already discussed it, that humans have the choice of naming things, giving name to new things, and that is why we have new products with new names, new ideas with new names. And once something is named and it is socially accepted, or it is accepted in a particular speech community, it becomes a part of a language. That is why we find new words coming, new usage coming by the passage of time. So this arbitrariness is a feature of language which is not found in animal communication system. Then the next feature of language is duality of patterning. What is this duality of patterning? Duality of patterning means formation of bigger elements by smaller elements one, and meaningful elements by non-meaningful elements. So we have sounds which are joined together, connected together to become meaningful units. In language, we have sounds which, many sounds which do not mean anything, but when they join together, they form words or morphemes, and then they get meaningful. And this is because of that language has become so powerful. It has the capability to combine smaller units into larger units, and using meaningless things into forming meaningful things. So we have syntagmatic and paradigmatic set of patterning through which the small set of symbols are used for producing vast and unlimited number of utterances. And this leads to the third feature, that is called productivity. Productivity is itself shown that we have in English, for example, we have a limited number of sounds, and on the basis of those sounds, we can go on producing numberless words, and on the basis of a particular stock of words, we can go on producing a large number of unlimited number of sentences. So this productivity is the aspect, it is an important feature of language, and that makes it so powerful as a set of system. Then one thing that differentiates language with other set of symbols, particularly used by animals, is displacement. Now we can, with language, we can talk about things which are distant and which are not before us. So we can talk about our imagination. We can go on talking about new things which are displaced from us. It is not just a kind of stimulus response which is found in the animal communication system. Then language is a means of culture transformation, culture transmission. One set of cultural value is carried forward to the other generation through language. So language is a kind of storage of human knowledge, and it is through language that humans have been able to uh, transfer or transmit the cumulative knowledge that they have derived or got from previous generations. So we can carry the baton of knowledge to from one generation to the other generation through language. And language has also reflexivity. Reflexivity means we can think in language. We can use language for poetic purposes and imagination and thinking. So that is quality of language. And lastly, the language is variable. It is not fixed. So in any animal communication system, we find a particular set of sounds or grunts there from the very beginning, and there is no change. So a cow will utter sound in a way that has been uttered several years back and forward also. But language has went on changing. So, as with the passage of time, with the place, change of place, we can find that language changes. So, these are the main characteristics of language. Now, after this, we shall discuss some of the functions of language. As we know that without language, it is not possible to run a society. So, human life is not possible without some sort of language. So, linguistic codes are necessary for the existence of human beings. Uh, Broadly speaking, language has three basic functions. One is the informative function, the other one is expressive function, and the third one is directive function. Now, informative function is used for passing information, sharing information. So we in day-to-day life we share information. One person shares other information in different ways. So informative function, this is one important aspect of uh, uh, linguistic function. Then we have expressive function. Besides sharing information, general information, we express our desires, emotions, feelings, etc. So this is also an important function of language. This leads to the growth of literature, poetry, etc. So we have a kind of emotive aspect of language also. Then we have the directive function. Now, this directive function is very important. It is used as a means of social control. And without language, the functioning of a government or any administrative organization will be very difficult. Even the social control of uh, humans will not be possible without any language, because some directions are passed and the speech community receives it. So these three are the broad functions. And now, a linguist, Roman Jacobson, uh, specified six functions of language, although they are all come under the purview of the three basic functions. But according to Roman Jacobson, we have six functions of language. One is the referential function, that is naming and describing things. We name something in language and we describe something with the language. Then we have a poetic function. Poetic function that is used for literary uses, for poetry, for song, for literature, etc. Then we have emotive functions for expressing our interactions and emotions and feelings, joys and sorrows, etc. So this is emotive function. Then we have conative functions uh, like vocative and imperatives, uh, expressing of orders and commands, etc. And then we have a emphatic function that is used for social etiquettes like hello, okay, good morning, etc. This is also a function, important function of language that is operated in society. And of course, the last function is that of metalingual. Language has the capacity to describe itself. So we can talk about language itself. This is a special feature of language. Language is used for talking about language itself. So this is called metalingual function. So generally, we have informative function, we have expressive function, we have directive function, and of course, the six functions that have been described by Roman Jacobson. Overall, language is used to express uh, every need and desire of humans. Then we come to another part of language, another aspect of language, that is how language began. How did language originate? There is not a single theory. There are many theories, although none of the theory is considered to be very convincing. All the theories are tentative theories about the origin of language. In fact, even today, it is not possible to tell how language came. As we know that man is not born with a language, how did human being acquire language is still a problem. One of the first theories of the origin of language is the theory of divine origin. Now, according to this theory, it is said that language was given to us by God. And in our Indian mythology, we have uh, goddess Saraswati, who is supposed to be the goddess of language. And it is also said that Lord Shiva played his damaru, and from that, certain sounds emanated that gave birth to music and language also. This is also one aspect of, but the divine theory is not fully accepted, it is discarded. Then there are certain other theories. We have very interesting names like Bobo theory. According to this theory, primitive words were imitations of the natural sounds in the human surrounding. It is said that man imitated the natural sounds that came in his nearing surrounding. Then we have poo poo theory. It tells that language might have been born out of natural cries of emotions such as pain, pleasure, anger, excitement, etc. So it is the natural outburst theory. We might say that human beings gave kind of reflexive sound, which later on developed into language. And then we have yo he ho theory. It says that language is a product of social interaction, grunts, hums, etc. When human beings interacted, they made out certain types of sounds, and maybe to call one another, or give certain kind of signals to one another. So this here is also not totally accepted. And we have a ding dong theory, uh, uh, which says that language began when human beings began naming objects after a relevant sound that was already involved in their everyday life. It is kind of onomatopoeic response. Certain sounds came out from certain things and they were named that. Again, this is a very, you know, not so satisfactory theory of language. And lastly, we have two other theories. One is the physical adaptation theory. According to this theory, it is said that gradually human beings evolved their kind of change in their sound system or articulatory system. like there was change in the shape of teeth and lips and mouth and pharynx and larynx that became gradually helpful in the production of sound. And the last theory is has been given by a modern linguist, Noam Chomsky. It says that uh, a child is born with a kind of language programming. So human brain is enabled with that language programming, and there is a language acquisition device that is present in the brain of a child that helps a child learn language. So all these theories are only tentative theories, and nothing final can be said about the origin of language. Nevertheless, humans have been able to manage language successfully, and language has been evolving through uh, the use of it by humans. Then we come to the other aspect of language, that is classification of language. How languages are classified. Now, we know that we have many languages, thousands of languages in the world, depending on the area and locations. We have so many languages. Now, after the 18th century or in the 19th century, when linguists started comparing different languages, or language surveys were uh, carried on, it was found that there were certain similarities in languages, although languages were different also, but there were certain elements which were found to be similar. So this similarity, on the basis of this similarity, there was an attempt to classify the language. The languages were classified on two levels. One is called the typological classification, and the other one is called genealogical classification. Now, typological classification, of course, classifies language on different types based on the grammatical features or uses. So we have typological classification, and then we have genealogical classification, that is languages belonging to one particular family. So the language families were classified. On the basis of typological classification, we have four type of languages. We have isolating languages, we have inflecting languages, we have agglutinative languages, and we have polysynthetic languages. In isolating languages, we have words or syllables which are isolated, which are not connected together. They are spoken in isolation, and they mean in an isolated way. Uh, then we have inflecting languages in which a particular word expresses its meanings through different kinds of inflections. For example, in English also we have inflections. We have in Sanskrit we have many inflections of number and case and other things. Uh, so inflecting languages. Then we have agglutinative languages, which are somewhat between isolating and inflecting languages. And of course, lastly, we have polysynthetic languages. So in polysynthetic languages, we have long words which are expressing different meanings. So words can also serve like a sentence. Right? Eskimo's language is supposed to be agglutinative, sorry, polysynthetic language. So these are the classifications based on typological uh, basis. Then we have genealogical classification based on family. Uh, According to this classification, we have following types of language families. Following language families, like first of all is Indo-European family. Then we have Afro-Asiatic family. Then we have Niger-Congo family. Then we have Arabic family, Dravidian family, Sino-Tibetan family, Austro-Asiatic family, Tai-Kadai family, and Eskimo-Aleut family. So these are the main families of languages scattered around the world. Of these families, we have the largest family that is known as Indo-European family of languages. Now, in this Indo-European family of languages, again, we have many sub-branches, as it is the largest family of language, and English also, English and Sanskrit also belong to this family. Uh, in Indo-European family of language, we have Indo-Aryan, we have Iranian, Germanic, Scottish, Italic, Celtic, Slavic, Serbian, Hellenic, Armenian, and Albani language. Languages like Sanskrit, Hindi, Urdu, Bengali, Marathi, Sinhalese, English, German, Latin, French, Italian, Portuguese, then we Scottish, Bulgarian, Russian, Greek, Armenian. All these languages belong to this family. So Indo-European family is indeed the most important group of languages. After this, we come to the consideration of languages, language changes. How languages change. As we were discussing in the feature of language, we found that language has the capacity to change. Language has a special quality to change. Now, languages change on different levels. When we study Old English today, or for that matter, Middle English today, we can find that there is a large gap between the modern English and Old English and Middle English. And these changes take place with time, or take place with change, or because of certain technological and other socio-economic interventions. Also, languages change. So the main changes in language can be studied under three main categories, five main categories. One is the phonetic changes. Languages change on the basis of sound. So a particular sound that was pronounced in a way in Old English has got changed in modern English. Uh, for example, in Old English, we have the final E that was largely pronounced. So make might have been read as make in uh, Old English. Now it becomes make. So this is an example of phonetic change. Then we have grammatical changes. Certain grammatical changes take place in language with the passage of time, and that has also taken place uh, in respect of English also. We can say that English in the old English period was largely a language that expressed many of grammatical relations or even uh, semantic relations through uh, inflections. Later on, the inflections were leveled. So, Old English is called the period of full inflection. Middle English is called the period of leveled inflection, and Modern English is called the period of lost inflection. Though there are certain inflections still remaining. Then we have morphological changes. That is, change in the words, the stock of words, or the shape and size of word go go on changing. And these changes take place on two levels. One is by formation of new words, and the other one is by borrowing new words. So there is a kind of interaction between languages, and one language borrows words from other language in order to enrich itself. So when two languages uh, reside side by side, there are certain interactions, linguistic interactions, and then words are borrowed from one language to the other language, and this helps in the enrichment of a particular language. So these two ways, formation of new words and borrowings, these two methods help in morphological changes. So today, in English, for example, we have many words which were not found earlier, and English borrowed words from different sources, and every day we are forming new words, particularly after the uh, advent of social media. We have a large number of portmanteau words or coinages, new coinages, and acronyms that are being used, and this has been a feature of language change. Then we have semantic change. Languages also change, words also change on the basis of meaning. A particular word had a very good connotation in the ancient times, but now it is used in a bad sense. Similarly, certain words meant badly in old ages. Now they have got a new connotation that is that has supposed to be good connotation. Then certain words had a very narrow meaning. Now they have got a broad meaning, and just opposite of certain words had very broad meaning, and now they have got a very narrow meaning. So these changes are part of language. We have these semantic changes that take place firstly because of time, and uh, secondly because of certain change of place and certain change of socio-economic conditions. And lastly, we have social variations of language. Now, with the use of language in a particular speech community itself, or because of going going of language from one community to the other speech community, acquisition of language there, we had we have certain social variations. So we have dialects of language. Then we have sociolect. We have registers and other things. We have the condition of diglossia, where two languages are used, one for particular purpose and the other for a different purpose. So languages vary on the basis of social interaction and social use also. Uh, in language variations, we can find different aspects. One is the regional variation. So languages can vary on the basis of region, and regional variation of language is known as dialect. Uh, a language becomes localized, and this regional variation takes place in language. Then we have nowadays we have new national varieties of languages, like American English or Indian English or Australian English, where a particular language is used in a particular country, and with the passage of time, certain new changes or certain new features develop in that language. So we can see that American English is uh, different from British English in various respects, in respect of use of words or pronunciation or grammatical features. Also, we have certain changes that have taken place. That is true about Indian English also. Certain new grammatical or linguistic features have developed into Indian English also because of local accent influence and other things. So we have national varieties of language. Then we have historical variations because of time change. As the time changes, uh, we have new changes in language gradually. Then we have variation of style. Style variation takes place because of the way the language is used. For example, we have a journalistic style, or we have a, kind of non-standard language and standard language. So we have variation of style also. Uh, then we have personal variation. Personal variation, there is a term called idiolect. The personal, every person has a particular mannerism or a kind of particular style of using language that is based, that can be mm, completely completely belong to him, his style and his mannerism. So this is personal variation, and we have social variations. Different societies use different languages for different purposes. So we have social. One language is also gets different in different societies. So certain social variations also take place, like the use of jargon, etc. Then professional variation, use of particular register in a particular profession. For example, a policeman or a doctor or a journalist will use particular set of words which are not used generally elsewhere, or which are used elsewhere in a different sense. So we have these kinds of professional variations of language also. Now, with this, we have made a very cursory look. Uh, we have taken a very cursory look of the various aspects of language. We defined what is language. We try to know the different aspects or components of language. We also discussed various functions of language, where various features of language, various other changes that take place in language. Now, as I had proposed to give an introduction to language and linguistics, now we come to the second part of that will be a very small part of this lecture. What actually is linguistics? Now, linguistics, as we know, as it is known to all the students, is the science that studies language. Now, sometimes the question arises why linguistics is a science or how linguistics is a science. Now, the things that we have discussed earlier relating to the various aspects of language, all these things are discussed in the branch of studies that is known as linguistics. In recent times, there are certain other aspects which have been added to the study of language. All these things come under the purview of linguistics. So, linguistics is a science. It is a science because it is very systematic, it is based on data, it is empirical, and it is holistic. Linguistics studies every aspect of language from its structure to its function to all its components to all its variations to all its features. All these things are studied in linguistics in a very systematic manner. And the speciality of linguistics is that it is descriptive rather than prescriptive. In this sense, it differs from uh, grammar, traditional grammar, so to say, which was largely prescriptive. Linguistics does not tell what should be, it rather tells what it is. So it makes a thorough analysis of language, different aspects of language, both in terms of uh, history and in terms of its place in a particular time. So, linguistics studies things both in terms of synchronic study and in terms of diachronic study. Uh, as language has to study, linguistics has to study various aspects of language. Linguistics has been divided into several branches. The first branch is known as phonetics. Phonetics is the study of sounds. Then it studies only how sounds are produced, how sounds are transmitted, and how sounds are received. So phonetics has three distinguished sections. One is articulatory phonetics, the other one is auditory phonetics, and then third one is acoustics. So this branch is centered to the study of sounds. Then another branch of linguistics that also pertains to sounds is phonology. Now, phonology discusses or studies sounds and sound patterns in a particular language. So phonology is mostly language specific. For example, phonology studies different types of sounds in English and how sounds are combined into larger units like syllable. And it also takes into account the stress pattern or intonation. So phonology discusses this. Then we have the branch of linguistics that studies words, the structure of words, and the formation of words, how new words are formed, what are the components of a word, how smaller words are combined into larger words. So, morphology studies words, and the basic unit of morphology is morpheme. How and it classifies morphemes. So, this is the study of words. Then we have a unit that studies sentences. From word we have sentences, phrases, and clauses. So the branch of linguistics that studies different sentences of phrases or clauses is known as syntax. So we can also incorporate grammar in this part. Then we have semantics. Semantics is the study of meaning. In this branch of linguistics, we study uh, different aspects of meaning. What is synonym, what is antonym, what is homonym, all these, what is hyponym, and all other things studied in semantics. And semantic changes, of course, come under the purview of linguistics. Then we have pragmatics. Now, pragmatics is the study of uh, language in a particular context, how a particular word gets a meaning in a particular context. So it is a kind of sociolinguistic approach to the study of language. And of course, we have stylistics. Stylistics studies the use of language in literature. So overall, these are the branches of linguistics, and the branches themselves tell how linguistics studies language in a systematic way. So with this, we come to the end of my presentation, and in this presentation, as I have been telling, I have tried only to enumerate certain aspects of language and phonetics for the beginner students. It is by no means any attempt to give any specialistic approach to language and linguistics. It's meant only for those students who are trying to study uh, linguistics and language, or to have some idea of the different aspects of language. So we have come to the end of this presentation, and if there are some questions, I would like to answer them.
Thank you so much, sir, for the excellent talk. I'm sure the students have been really enriched by your lecture. And it was really wonderful listening to you, especially the manner you have intricately framed the scope and meaning of language, the definition or its origin or its features, and even the functions of language. and also the manner you have brought forward the different aspects of linguistic is, I'm definitely sure the students will be beneficial from your lecture. And sir, with your permission, we'd like to move towards our question answer session, and
Yeah.
we would like to take up the first question. And do you want me
And
to read out?
no, no, I'm already reading it. The first question is, what is the difference between language and dialect? Now, this question sometimes creates confusion because there are certain dialects which have have got the standard form which qualifies as a language. Uh, Generally speaking, a language and a dialect differ on the basis of intelligibility. It is said that two dialects are intelligible, mutually intelligible, but two languages are not mutually intelligible. And dialects are subsets of a language. So, certain dialects, one language can have several dialects, and generally they are the regional variations of the language. So, but sometimes the problem is created when a dialect becomes standardized and it qualifies to be a language. It has its own literature. For example, in India or in northern India, we have Bhojpuri, which generally, in technical terms, is supposed to be a dialect of Hindi. But Bhojpuri has its own literature, developed literature. So it, it from dialect, it may qualify to be a language. So in technical terms, a dialect is a subset of language, and the dialects of a particular language are mutually intelligible. So that's it. And next question. Then there is a question from Tausif Mohsen. You said language is arbitrary in nature. The question arises that if it is so, then a language may still exist if it is not backed by convention of a certain speech community. Yes, Dr. Tausif, I know that you are an expert of linguistics. It is a question that raises a kind of question mark on the arbitrariness of language. But nevertheless, conventionality is also an important aspect of language uh, because a speech community understands things based on the conventionality also. This does not, however, tell that the arbitrariness of nature is null and void. Of course, language is also conventional, but then it is arbitrary nevertheless. We cannot cease to have the capability of naming things in a new way, in a new time. So with new circumstances, we can find new words and uses, and conventionality is there, but arbitrariness cannot be ruled out. Next question. Yes, this question actually there were some reference to the difference between language and animal communication when I was dealing with the features of language. But I think there are certain distinguishing elements which are not found in animal communication. Animals also communicate with themselves among themselves, but animal communication does not have the qualities of language. For example, uh, animals know language by birth. So So they cannot acquire it, except in certain birds like parrot. We do not have any capacity in other animals to acquire language. The language is the set of signals that they use is just inborn. So a cow cannot be taught to speak in English. Whatever we do, a cow cannot be taught to speak English. But a man, a human child who is born in the surroundings where Hindi is spoken, and all of a sudden that child is carried out to in an English speaking community, you will find that the child will start speaking English. So it is this difference is there. Then there is stimulus response part of language. Now, animals generally respond to a particular stimulus. They can show certain kind of anger, or certain kinds of sounds can be emanated for a particular purpose. But we cannot think of animals talking about any distant things. There is just one exception of bees, which which convey certain messages from distance also. Then in animal communication system, we have one sound and one meaning, but that is not there in human communication system. In human communication system, we have one sound converted into several new words and converted into different sentences. So this is also a difference between human language and communication. And then animal communication system is closed. It has a distinguished set of symbols which are used. It cannot be converted into limitless number, unlike human communication. And lastly, languages evolve, but uh, animal communication system does not evolve. So these are the major differences between animal communication system and language. And
Okay, sir.
any other
Thank you
question?
so much. No, sir. Thank you so much, sir. This was the last question. It is our honor to have you as a resource person. In fact, we think that you have set the standard of this lecture series, and KKM College will remain indebted to you. And thank you once again. And
Thank
so,
you.
with
Thank
your
you.
due
Yes.
permission, we would like to move on towards our next speaker, Mr. Debashis Mitra.
Okay. Welcome, Debashis.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
That was indeed a very enriched lecture. So, for this second lecture, we have with us another speaker who has really spared his valuable time for us to come and deliver talk to the students so that they can be given knowledge about the topics they must have missed in this hard hit time. So I would just like to introduce ourselves, Debashis Mitra, who is currently an assistant professor in English in Government Engineering College, Daman, DNH and DD. In addition, he is pursuing PhD from the Department of English and Foreign Languages, Guru Ghasidas Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. He has also presented papers in many national as well as international conferences and participated in many workshops and has four publications in peer reviewed journals under his belt. And today he is going to talk on the slow thighs approaching in Yeats the second coming, a study of romantic apocalypse. So without wasting any more time, I would like to give you our next speaker, who I'm sure going to glue you to his lecture. Sir, over to you.
Yeah. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay. So, thank you so much. And first of all, just a minute. Yeah. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the KKM College, Munger University, and Dr. Sinha, Dr. Polle, and all the interfraternity that are involved with this online lecture series. Now, before we move on to my lecture, let me tell you one thing. This lecture is meant to be student-oriented because, but even that, I will try to touch upon many different issues uh, that always remain uh, untouched. So, without further ado, the title of my talk is The Slow Thighs Approaching in Yeats's The Second Coming, a study of romantic apocalypse. So I will talk about why did I mention that line, the slow thighs approaching. So we know W.B. Yeats is one of the greatest modern poets in the 20th century for his great contributions in poetic career and with and contributing to literature in general. So now W.B. Yeats, first of all, I will try to highlight his the background of this poem and his poetic career and some other associations surrounding Yeats' poetry, and we will quickly move to the second coming. Now, Yeats was born to an Anglo-Irish family in Dublin in 1865, and his father, John Butler Yeats, had abandoned the subject of law to take up painting because he believed on the religion of art. He was not so much religious by temperament, so much Yeats was. Yeats was also religious by temperament, but but he was unable to believe. It was unable. Yeats was not able enough to believe on the Christian orthodoxy, and so he felt a kind of lost religion in his mind throughout his life, and he always tried to sort out that to compensate for the lost religion, and this search actually drives him to various schools, various disciplines, and those disciplines are of quite different nature, not of the mainstream nature, like folklore, theosophy, Neoplatonism, and so many other schools like Hermetic school and occult, Neoplatonic thoughts, paranormal activities. So many things has been replete with his life. So now his childhood and manhood were spent in basically three places: Dublin, London, and Sligo, because Yeats's wife belonged to Pollexfen family. His wife's name was Susan Mary Pollexfen, so who lived near Sligo, the west part of Ireland. Now, each of these places actually contributed to the poetic development of Yeats. Now, now in London in 1890s, he met many important poets. He found uh, Irish Literary Society, and he acquired late romantics, as he said in one of his poems that we were the last romantics. In the poem Cool Park and Ballylee, 1931. Now, from the early stage of his poetic career, he believed that poetry should be dream-like, poetry should be evocative, poetry should be ethereal. Now, from the countryside around Sligo, he gained the enormous amount of knowledge of folklore, legends, myths, and he founded Irish nationalism. He was highly influenced by the fervor of Irish nationalism, though there are so many ambivalent positions on the part of Yeats as a poet, as an aesthetician. Yeah. So now he also has met with a number of great personalities like George Russell, from whom he got interested in mysticism, in the supernatural. He met with William Morris, John O'Leary, which awakened his interest in cultural nationalism, and many associations are there from which he has uh, created a keen interest in the magic, in the occult, in many supernatural uh, importance, which was headed by the teachings of Madame Blavatsky. And through the teachings of Madame Blavatsky, uh, he was under the spell of theosophy. He was under the spell of esoteric cultures. Now, on the other hand, Yeats was also highly influenced by the French symbolism. We know that French symbolism originated from the 19th century poetry by Baudelaire, Rimbaud, Verlaine, Mallarmé, and Valery. Now, in this particular context, Yeats was uh, inspired by Valery's point of symbolism, who actually exploits the mysterious suggestions of symbols. In 1889, he published The Wanderings of Oisin, which marked the first outcome of his interest in Ireland. In 1893, he published The Celtic Twilight, which is also, which is a volume of essays. And after meeting with Augusta Lady Gregory, he was lured to some ancient rituals, to some occult meanings, and some other things related to those schools. Now, Yeats developed an interest in the occult science, a kind of new science, or those artists of that particular school called it proto science, right? Which resulted from the study of theosophy as a young man, and developed when he joined the Theosophist school. This school actually is a kind of school of thought which was advocated by Madame Blavatsky, as I said before, who believed that the knowledge of the God could be attained through ecstasy, could be attained through spiritual ecstasy, occult ecstasy, and direct intuition. Now, here the intuition plays a major role in the teachings of these theosophical teachings or occult teachings. Now, Yeats, after that, after having all these kind of teachings, Yeats was involved intimately with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It is actually called a secret society devoted to the study and practice of philosophy, practicing of alchemy, practicing of magic, and paranormal activities as well. You know, uh, it's a kind of the point. What lies here, the importance is that the relationship between the unchanging God and the changing finite universe, so this relationship can be achieved through various rituals, various performances. And here also different strands of thoughts, different strands of esoteric sciences have come up, have crop up in the mind of Yeats. Like he was also drawn to Kabbalistic teachings. The Kabbalistic teachings mainly based on the idea that you can achieve the God or the other side of God, whatever it is, the relationship especially between the changing uh, universe and the unchanging infinite almighty. So these things are a little bit difficult to understand through our logic, but still Yeats was highly enamored by these sort of schools of thought. Okay, now let before that, Yeats's wife produced automatic writing, and Yeats believed that those automatic writing were dictated by the spirits. Okay, because his Yeats's wife also is highly involved with the school, with that society, secret society, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Right. So now we will look at the poetic career. Now, Yeats poetic career, you cannot, you cannot specify, you cannot boil down Yeats's poetry into one bottom line proposition. It's very difficult to typify him, to categorize him, because his poetry ranges from uh, many schools to many other schools. Like, so we can categorize Yeats's poetic career into three phases. You know, there it is not fixed. You can change the dates, but roughly we can categorize the first phase from 1886 to 1819, 1899, sorry, 1886 to 1899, phase one, which was imbued with late romanticism, imbued with Celtic myths, aestheticism, symbolism, and esoteric doctrine. Okay, in the phase two, 1900 to 1918, in this second phase, you can trace out the transitional period of Yeats's proto-modernist sensibility, because Yeats is very modern than modernist like T.S. Eliot and other contemporary writers. Uh, he incorporates many esoteric traditions into his poetry. So, in that sense, he is quite modern, and the sense of impersonality as well. Now, in the third phase, 1919 to 1939, in this third phase, Eliot reached to a peak point, to the, we can say, to the pinnacle point, to the height of his maturity, poetic maturity, where previous elements of his art are fed into highly complex issues of life, of the cycle of life, of the life and death, and so many other, with the use of mythological thoughts, it becomes very obscure to understand what does Yeats talk about actually. So we will quickly move on. That in this third phase, Yeats reached to the to a point of vision, and he wrote a book also, A Vision, where he talks about how the whole world is based on on the cycle of life, and that cannot be understood merely from Western logic. Whatever Yeats wrote, all revolves around a kind of challenge towards the Enlightenment logic. The that the human logic will help for the betterment of human civilization. But what kind of logic does this consist of? What makes a logic logical? So Yeats is very critical of these things, and to understand, to find out the solution for the lost religion, in particular, in Yeats's case, he tries to uh, understand from other schools of thought, as I mentioned earlier. Now, in the poem, The Second Coming, it was written in 1919 and printed in the Dial in November 1920. And afterwards, it was included in the 1921 collection of verses, Michael Robatis and the Dancer. Now, since it's a very short poem, so we can go to the poem line by line. Now, the poem begins like this: turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. So, turning and turning in the widening gyre. What is turning? The gyre. Yeats gives a concept of the gyre of a two conical shape. Gyre is like the shape of a cone. We like to, we are fond of having the cone ice cream. So it's like that kind of cone, right? So he talks about the two gyre in the shape of a cone, and those gyres are turning and turning. Okay, there are two gyres, and two gyres are turning and turning for 2000 years, and it goes on, like it goes on. Now, what Yeats means to say, that he means to say the spiraling motion in the shape of a cone. Now he envisions the 2000-year cycle of the Christian age as spiraling towards its end, and the next historical cycle as beginning after the violent reversal. Okay, so this concept of Jaya he also used in a book, A Vision, where he means to say that he gives a theory about the movements of history of different types of personality. Each movement and type, all those movement, all those types are related. Those are related to the different phases of the lunar space. And now it becomes quite obscure to understand how does he make the relationship between the movements of the history to the movements of the moon, right? But it was his immense influence from uh, from his teachings of various esoteric traditions, and he actually tries to show the movements of the history, the movements of different personality, and those movements of history, actually by the movements of history he means to suggest the movement of the civilization. One civilization has one single human character. After 2000 years, another one single human type will come. So yes, we are aware that we don't have any singularity. We don't have the single God, or we don't have the single human. We have multiplicity of expressions, multiplicity of types. Yes, of course. But here Yeats actually talk about the repertoire of the images, the storehouse of image, the human type, whatever differences, whatever conscious differences in the consciousness you may have, but still we have a common consciousness. And what Carl Jung also talks about, the collective unconscious, and the type, whatever differences you have, we are still common to something. And that commonness, that collective unconscious sameness, is what Yeats refers. And through the movement of the civilization, it will come out. The first civilization was the image of a Christ. The Christ-like innocence was the kind of human character. But after, according to biblical doctrine, after 2000 years, what kind of character will come out? Yeats is very skeptic that after 2000 years, uh, this civilization really deserves the Christ-like innocence again. In this civilization, which is surrounded with world wars, surrounded with Irish nationalism, surrounded with Russian Revolution, and so many chaos, so many disorder. So keeping all these chaos, keeping all the things that fell apart and the lost center, Yeats is very skeptic that this civilization may not deserve the coming of the Christ-like innocence. So we will see what happens in other lines. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. The human beings are no longer in control of God, are no longer in control of fate. Right. So a utter loss, a utter loss has come to our life. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. This line is very loaded with many ideas, many terms, many meanings. Now, what do things refer in this particular line? Things fall apart. Uh, Now, it can be you can say that these are the things that happened in these are the number of cultural breakups that happened in the Victorian age, sense of belief in God has got lost, belief in sense has got lost, brotherhood has got lost, everything has got lost. And the modern people are crying in pain. They are lamenting over the loss, the massive loss. Right. So in that sense, it can be those things that fell apart, the sense of community, the sense of fellow feeling, the brotherhood, or those essences through which we confirm our identity, through which we assure that I exist, that we confirm our human existence. So all those principles, all those criteria has got lost. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Now, if we look at this line from a technical point of view, from the structure of this line, now even the line, if you see the line, things fall apart, semicolon, then the center cannot hold. So, you can even see the whole structure, the whole sentence of the line is even shattered with the use of semicolon, with the use of caesura, to emphasize, to emphasize that it has got punctured. It has, even in the poetic structure, the the symmetry of the line has got lost in the staccato sound of these words. Things fall apart. This sounds is not very much poetic. It doesn't sound poetic, but it is poetic in some sense, maybe in apocalyptic sense, because it talks about the apocalypse. It talks about the end time of the civilization, end time of the world. So this line is also rooted in Christian eschatology. Eschatology is the study of end times. It yes, it is the study of end times. It studies that this civilization has this human type. After this civilization, another civilization is coming. What would be the nature of the new millennium? What would be the nature? What would be the type of the new millennium? So actually, Yeats reiterates through these lines the question that does this civilization deserve the same Christ-like innocence to come, or does it something else? Or does it deserve something else? Right. So moving on to the next one, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Now look at the use of the words mere anarchy, apparent anarchy, complete anarchy, complete chaos is loosed upon the world. Human beings are no longer in control of fate, no longer in control of God. If you look at this poem structurally, you can see that even the line is written in the passive voice. It might suggest the passivity of human beings. They are helpless. It shows the infertility. It shows the infertility of human beings. The blood dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. If the ceremony of innocence is drowned, then this new civilization should not deserve the Christ-like innocence to come again. The beast lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Now again, there is again antithetical juxtaposition. The sorry, I pronounced beast. It is the best. The best lack all conviction, while the worst, are full of passionate intensity. So this is the time of chaos. This is the time of disorder where uh, water becomes red. Yes, it alludes to Bible that that blood dim tide, when Armageddon pour out their bowls into water and it becomes into red. So here actually Yeats makes use of this allusion in this first stanza to serve as a cause that leads to his prophetic vision. We will see in the next stanza that this bloody tide, the tide is full of blood, right? This tide, actually this tide is the human civilization he is referring, and this human civilization is bloody. So it represents the chaos and suffering that human has to face in this coming civilization. And so because this civilization is surrounded with a number of wars, world wars, number of everything, all the essences that has got lost. So surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. So definitely you understood that this second coming will not be of the Christ-like innocence in this time. The second coming will be something else. Uh, Now, before that, this revelation, surely some revelation is at hand. This revelation again alludes to the book of Revelation, the last chapter in the New Testament, where, it was revealed to John, Saint John, if I'm not mistaken, that actually the Saint John envisions that I am the Alpha and the God. Surely there will be second coming. It also alludes to another, so many other mythological doctrines as well. So it is the apocalyptic document. That book of Revelation is the apocalyptic document in the New Testament canon. It occupies again the central place in Christian eschatology, within Christian theology. So what kind of revelation Yeats is envisioning here? This revelation is about not the Christ to come, rather it's time to come, it's turn of the Antichrist. Because this civilization cannot be nursed into normalcy by the first Christ, by the Christ-like innocence. To destroy the evil and protect the mankind of this new millennium, Antichrist has to come. Not even in human form, as Yeats is referring through the other lines. Hardly are those out when a vast image out of spiritus mundi troubles my sight. When a vast image out of spiritus mundi troubles my sight. Vast image of whom? Of spiritus mundi. What does it refer? Spiritus mundi. Actually, spiritus mundi, or Yeats refers anima mundi. It is the world soul. It is the spirit of the universe, not the spirit of humanity even the spirit of the universe. The whole human world is also connected to other forms of the whole world order. So it is the spirit of the universe. It is the repertoire of images. It is the storehouse of archetypes. Because Yeats believes, he wrote somewhere that this world soul is an intrinsic connection between all living things on the planet. Everything is connected, everything is related. It also relates to the world in much the same way as the soul is connected to the human body. As our soul is connected to our human body, so the whole human body soul concept is related to other forms of the world universe as well, to the world order as well. So it shows the spirit of the universe, the consciousness of the universe. Now here he says that somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape of lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs. So here Yeats refers to the look, to the through the appearance of this antichrist, of the beast, that it seems to look like with a lion body, with a head of a human. Now again, it shows the very appearance of the antichrist doesn't look human. Okay, so you can imagine Yeats is envisioning a kind of character which should not be human at all, because human cannot protect the mankind in this new millennium, in this new civilization. To protect this mankind and to destroy the evils of this mankind, uh, you know a different avatar has to come. Now I'm coming to the towards the ending lines, that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle, and what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So number of references, number of allusions have been put together here. That 20 centuries of stony sleep, after 2000 years, Yeats is envisioning the another civilization. But this civilization does not deserve the Christ figure again. Right? So that repetition keeps coming in through these lines. Now, through the rough beast, he gives a reference to the Sphinx, which is a mythical figure with the head of a human and with a lion body. Now, again, through all this line, Yeats is trying to figure out that this civilization never deserves figure like Christ, because it is the total chaos, it is the total disorder. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, the lost center. In this lost center, in this apocalyptic time, in this apocalypse, it is the end of the Christ like civilization. Okay, but in my title, I have mentioned romantic apocalypse. How apocalypse can be romantic? Here apocalypse is not romantic, but here, after all, Yeats is the last romantic, as he claims himself in that poem. So the poem ends with a note of interrogation. Ultimately, he is romantic, right? He does not give statement that the rough beast is coming and to Bethlehem and it is going to born, full stop. No, there is no full stop. There is the question mark. There is the note of interrogation, which hints at again his romantic sensibility. He is very optimistic at certain points that he is questioning to the reader that through the use of the words, if you see slow thighs, right? Slow thighs. The thighs are moving, but slowly. We have enough time. We have still time to rectify ourselves, to bring normalcy back to the center, to compensate the lost center, the lost religion. It slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So the act of slouching, the movement are not very active. It is little bit lazy, slow. So through the use of these words, Yeats might suggest the note of optimism that yes, we have the time to bring normalcy, bring center back to its own proper place. Okay, now actually again, so whatever I am saying are meant to the students. It will help them to understand it in better way. That's why I am not going into much complicated issues. Uh, but let me highlight some points, uh, some little points actually why Yeats was very romantic in this. And actually, this romanticism, what he has had, not from the Ireland, not from the Irish mythology, Irish folklore, from Sligo and from other places associated to the west of Ireland, but he was also highly influenced by Indian philosophy. He was influenced by Buddhism, Hinduism, and many principles, by many scriptures. Okay, so now you may also you will be also, one different idea that when just a minute, I have picked. Yes, there is a one character actually, Mohini Mohan Chatterjee, right, who was native of Calcutta and he was a Brahmin by birth, and he was a philosopher scholar by inclination. Now, he joined the Theosophical Society and he came to Dublin towards the end of 1885. He was invited by Charles Johnston there, who was the founder of the Hermetic Society. Now, when Mohan Mohini Chatterjee went to Dublin in 1885, Yeats seized the opportunity to listen to him. Yeats was a devotee to Mohini Mohan Chatterjee's theosophical philosophy, theosophical knowledge, and the teachings. He was, highly drawn to these Hinduism and Buddhism and many other principles. So Yeats, we can say Yeats is a modern poet, but not typical modernist the way T.S. Eliot frames himself to be. Rather, we should say W.B. Yeats is more modern than a modernist, because he not only draws upon Western intellectual aspects of poetry, at the same time, he has drawn a number of Asian, Irish, and so many transnational points of view. He always tries to incorporate everything, even in this tiny body of the poem. He incorporated a number of strands, a number ranging from different schools. Okay, now uh, coming to some concluding remark, that you can say that through this poem and through some brief introduction of T.S. Eliot as a poet, he hybridizes Irish, English, Asian traditions, European traditions. Okay, and now uh, you can say that he revives native myths, place names, many consciousness, not only the consciousness of Western construction of human consciousness, but also the very Eastern construction of human consciousness, which is very much related to direct intuition to God, uh, which is talked about in the occult esoteric tradition or in Kabbalistic teachings that you can find out the relationship you can achieve through if you highly indulge yourself uh, in the relationship between this changing world, changing universe, and the unchanging God. You can find out, you can compensate your lost religion, your lost sense, your lost consciousness. So it appears very obscure at times, but it still means a lot to Yeats's poetry. Right. Now, if we say, if you want to typify, if you want to say, then what is the nature of W.B. Yeats? But I just refer to one poem. Okay, there are many other poems. You may find out different points of view. Okay, you cannot justify uh, reading the second coming with all others. When you will read, Byzantium or some other poems, you will find out different point of view. Okay, so his poetic career is very unique, different from one to other. Now, even if we dare to typify him, then we can say that Yeats is a hard-nosed skeptic and an esoteric idealist, a nativist and a cosmopolitan, because he transcends boundaries of nations, of schools of thoughts, an Irish nationalist. He is, after all, a romantic. He always have had a sense of love for his native land, and an ironic anti-nationalist as well. He is very apathetic, very ambivalent to the Irish revolutionaries. He considers them as mortally fool, as being referred in Easter 1916 poem, that they are mortally fool. They are just a fool. They are clown. They don't know the price of human life. So very farcical, very apathetic attitude you can find. At the same time, being romantic, and again a romantic brooding on the loss and unrequited desire. It again goes back to the love for Morgan, which happens to be his muse in his poetic development. Though he was disappointed many times by Morgan, and he also uh, abuses the husband of Morgan, and it is also written in the Easter 1916 poem that Major John McBride is a vainglorious lout, he is a drunkard. Okay, so that shows the inner hatred of Yeats, because Yeats was rejected by Morgan. He made many times marriage proposal to Morgan, but Morgan refused him. Okay, so interesting points are there. And after all, a modernist mocking idealism, nostalgia, and contemporary society. So, different strands, different threads have crop up in Yeats as a poet, as an aesthetician. Okay, now this is what I wanted to say, but I would like to touch upon another reference, some two reference, one particular, another is in general, that that Sphinx, that rough beast, can be referred as a kind of Narsimha, the fierce avatar who incarnates from Vishnu, uh, and to he was the called the god of protection who has come to kill the evil and protect the mankind. Right. So Yeats was highly aware of all these things, of all these Indian philosophical principles, all these mythological doctrines. Right. Now, let me conclude with some lines I quoted from the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You can easily understand. Let me read it out. I can't remember all these lines at a stretch. In the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, yada yada hi dharmasva glanir bharti bharata abhyuthanam adharmasva tadat mananam srijan hayam परित्राणाय साधुमनम विनाशाय च दुष्कृतम धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवानि युगे युगे. So yuge yuge Almighty will reincarnate himself to come on this earth to destroy the evil and protect the mankind. So, yuge yuge, millennium after millennium, I will come. In Book of Revelation, it was revealed to John that I am the Alpha, I am the Omega. The surely there will be second coming. So millennium after millennium, yuge yuge. But Yeats is very, very skeptic about the nature of this new millennium. What kind of nature it will come with? It does not deserve the figure of Christ. Antichrist has to come to destroy the evils, to protect the mankind. Okay, so just this much. And of course, if you want to relate this second coming in today's context, so of course, we are still expecting the vaccine to destroy the evil of coronavirus and protect the mankind of this millennium, right? So it's the nature of the second coming as we see in today's life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an erudite talk. The lecture was really very informative and it was very well organized, and especially the manner you have given a very new angle to Yeats' poetry, the second coming, and also the manner you have tried to put forth his views and philosophy, and especially when you say that center cannot hold, and yet find that normalcy can be brought back. And I think that is very pertinent in today's COVID 19 situation. That was really inexplicable lecture, sir. Thank you so much. And sir, now we would request you to move towards our question answer session. And
Yeah.
we would like to take the first question. And
Uh, yeah, I got a question. I can read it out. Are we to understand that the center which cannot hold is the hold of Western logic and civilization? Does he believe that the end of Western civilization is almost like an apocalypse? Yeah, in some sense, of course, it is the hold of Western logic. It's the end of the Western logic and civilization because, Yeats as an aesthetician is not referring to a particular school of logic, Western logic. It has other schools of logic as well. Eastern school of logic is very different from Western sense of logic. We have many Western concepts of logic, structure, sign, and so many things, signifier, and so many things are there. But Yeats is highly influenced by you know, by some philosophical stances, which cannot be understood in terms of Cartesian logic, that I think, therefore I can exist, I can think, therefore I can write. But so many problems are there, that what you think, is it your own thinking or something else? Either isn't the fact that there are some external agencies that are always playing upon you, uh, to make you write that, not this. Okay, so many things are there. I'm not going into those details. So yes, of course, you are quite right at certain way that it is the end of the Western logic. Not even the Western logic, it is end of the human consciousness. And another human consciousness is yet to come. And what kind of human consciousness will come, we don't know. But we already know it must not be the human consciousness of Christ. It's something else, maybe Antichrist, as Yeats referred. And yeah, the another part, does he believe the end of Western civilization is almost like a apocalypse? Uh, yes, I think by the concept apocalypse, he Yeats is talking about the eschatology, the study of end things. Okay, and Yes, in some way you can say that it is the end of Western civilization. Not even, again, not merely Western civilization. It is the end of human civilization. It is the end of the old millennium, and new millennium is to come. But Yeats is very skeptic about the nature of the new millennium. As we are very skeptic about the about our today's life, we don't know how many days we will live, right? It becomes mockery, isn't it? Life becomes mockery nowadays. We don't know what is going to happen with us today. I am where I'm staying. Uh, my building has been sealed because coronavirus are spreading out in the alleys. So we don't know. Still, we are live living with it. So yes, by apocalypse he means to a lot of things. Uh, if you want to say that, he means to say the human consciousness. Yes. Uh, yes, Dr. Somagus. Can Yeats' vision be said to be agonistic interpretation of Blake's vision? Can Yeats' Beast, the Second Coming, be compared to Blake's Urizen? Uh, in some sense, it can be compared because Blake's concept of contraries also play a crucial role in Yeats's concept of the vision. When Yeats wrote the vision, the book, the vision, sorry, not the vision, it is a vision. This book is the culmination of not only Western esotericism, Western mysteries, thoughts, but also various Eastern Indian philosophies. Uh, he is drawn to Buddhism, he is drawn to Theosophy, and when Mohini Mohan Chatterjee visited to Dublin in 1885, Yeats was, under the spell of him. Yeats was a devotee to him. He was just listening to him silently, devotedly. Uh, so I think Yeats's vision is of much higher level than that of uh, Blake's point of view. But still, there are some similarities, some associations are there. How would you compare the notion of the spiritual and the decadence of civilization in Yeats' The Second Coming, Eliot's Hollow Man? Uh, it's an interesting question. Now, let me talk about Eliot's Hollow Man in this context. Eliot's Hollow Man, T.S. Eliot is a typical modernist, right? T.S. Eliot is highly encumbered, huddled with French symbolism influence, imagism influence, basically the avant-garde influence. Okay, and yet T.S. Eliot, I am not much enthusiastic to say that T.S. Eliot is very much drawn to Eastern concept as Yeats did. Yes, T.S. Eliot is influenced by Indian philosophy. He wrote Santi, Santi, Santi in the last line of the Wasteland and uses some allusions as well in some of his poetic works. But Yeats is a keen, he's avid reader of Indian philosophy. Yes, what do you say? Notion of spiritual and decadence of civilization. Yeats talk about the aridity of Western civilization clearly. It clearly says that it is the hollow man, it is the hollowness of Western civilization, and specifically hollowness of the European civilization. But his poetic works might not reach the way Yeats's, reach to other schools. So that's why T.S. Eliot is more of a modernist, and W.B. Yeats is very modern. Yeats's stance of consciousness, Yeats's stance of the decadence of civilization is more about the whole world order than fixated to a fixated to a particular place. Can the archetypal female in Yeats be compared with Blake's notion of the eternal female? Uh, can the archetypal female in Yeats? I don't understand actually. What does it mean for archetypal female? Uh, can the archetypal female in Yeats be compared with Blake's notion of the eternal female? Yes, it can be related. Uh, so far as archetypes is concerned, Yeats talk about not on about the gender type. So far as I believed, I don't have much knowledge about the archetypal female. I don't understand actually. I may have to look up again. But so whatever I know is that Yeats's archetypes, Yeats's collective unconscious, Yeats's choice of spiritus mundi is about the archetype of human nature, is about the nature of one civilization. That's much I can say. But thank you for the question. It will help me to reread again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Once again, it was really
Thank you.
as an interesting question answer session, and we are really indebted that you have actually provided your valuable time out of your busy schedule, which I know that you are regular taking the online classes. And thank you so much,
Yeah.
sir, for sparing your valuable time. And so, with your due permission, we would like to come to end of today's session. And
Yes, and before that, let me thank you and to the organizer and the people. As I see, I never call them Dr. Polle or Dr. Sinha. This is the first time I'm addressing like this. They are always has been very, they are like close to my life from Bilaspur, our PhD center. So. Yes, I hope we will meet again. And
yes,
so, thank you so much. It was great pleasure and honor that you have given this opportunity to me to give a talk to the students of your college. Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. So with this, we come to end of today's session, and but this is not the end of the lecture series. Tomorrow we'll be back with another two more lectures. The first lecture will start again at 10:30 by Dr. Lois Jones, Assistant Professor, CIFA College from University of Kerala. Her topic will be Eliot and his sense of history, tradition, and talent, reading, tradition, and individual talent. And the second lecture will be from 11:30 by Dr. Hardik Udeshi, Assistant Professor, Christ College from Saurashtra University. The topic will be problems and solutions in speaking English language in India. So we hope to meet you again tomorrow. Till then, stay safe and take care.